Hello everybody, happy Friday and welcome to my channel. I have decided as long as I have the time, I will do a video once a week on Friday. That way, you have something to watch over the weekend, and if you so wish, you can take my video with you to go on a virtual walking tour. Today I am excited to take you on a walking tour of Light Street in Georgetown, Penang. This is a very important street in the city, and I'm eager to share with you details about places we will pass by. But before we start, let me give you our starting point coordinates. Enter these coordinates in your GPS, Google Maps or Waze to be taken to the starting point, and you can go on a walking tour on the street itself with me as your virtual tour guide. Let's start with this building at the junction of Light and Beach Streets. Those of you from Penang might remember it as the place to get your passport done. Yes, it's the immigration department and is used today by the shipping division. It is a very old building, over 130 years old. It was built in 1890 when the entire area was the Central Police Station. The police station is still around, now called Balai Polis Lebuh Pantai, but it has been much reduced in size. In front of us is the Light Street roundabout, and behind it the Queen Victoria Memorial Clock Tower, which I covered in the video on Fort Cornwallis. If you want to go on that walking tour, I will put the link to that video on the top right as well as in the description of this video. Much of the area that was once the Central Police Station complex has been given away to other government bodies. We are now at Light Street or Lebuh Light, and we are looking west. It is the oldest street in Georgetown, and with that being so, this street is older than most of the cities in Malaysia, including Kuala Lumpur, Ipoh, Seremban, even older than Singapore. Immediately after clearing the land, Captain Francis Light proceeded to lay out the first street of his settlement, which he unabashedly named after himself. We are looking at the roundabout once again, where two of Francis Light's oldest streets meet, Light Street in the foreground and Beach Street on the right. These two streets are as different from each other as day is to night. What is the difference? I will tell you shortly. But first, we talk about the building right in front of us. Built in the Anglo-Indian classical style, it is very old, dating to the early 19th century. Part of the Central Police Station complex, it was originally the Recorder's Court, the Police Courts, and the Magistrate Courts. In Penang Hokkien, although the police is generally called Mata, the word police itself is often corrupted to Pole, which has the same meaning as glass. Hence, the magistrate is called Polecu, literally Lord of the Glass. We are now looking at the Police Courts building, which today has been given a new lease on life as the State Assembly Building or Dewan Undangan Negeri. Since this building is called the Polecu or the Magistrate, the road in front of it, that is to say Light Street, is known in Penang Hokkien as Polekau, meaning entrance to the Magistrate's Court, or literally entrance to the glass. The building is in the shape of the letter E. It has three porticos like the one we are seeing here. By the way, the Romanized writing system used for Penang Hokkien that you see here is called Taiji Romanization. It was created in 2013 to make it easy to write Penang Hokkien on standard keyboards without needing to use any diacritic marks. I mentioned earlier that there's a major difference between the two oldest streets in Georgetown, namely Light Street and Beach Street. Take a good look at Light Street right now, and you'll see that it is as straight as an arrow. The same can't be said of Beach Street. In a future video, I will take you down Beach Street and we'll see the difference. It was Captain Francis Light's desire to have arrow straight streets like this, but he only managed to develop a small grid of streets in this manner. Francis Light died of malaria just 8 years after founding Georgetown. If he had lived longer, perhaps Georgetown would look very different today. Here's one of the three porticos of the State Assembly building. This sort of architecture was deemed appropriate for a courthouse and later on readapted as the State Assembly. Captain Francis Light would not recognize Light Street if he were to walk along it today. During his time, this place was almost rural. There was no electricity and no pipe water. To supply his town with water, he had a well dug at the very end of Light Street, where Convent Light Street School is located today. In its earliest incarnation, Light Street was exclusive to the British administrators. There's Fort Cornwallis on one side and the Central Police Station with the police courts on the other. A military garrison was stationed at the fort, and the Padang Kota Lama, which is today used for recreational activities, was then a military parade ground. Across the road is the Esplanade Park food court, famous today for its mee sotong. If you have the time and you like spicy food, you should adjourn there and give it a try. Padang Kota Lama, the field, is emptier today than it was in the 19th century. Back then, there were a few structures on the field. They include the Eurasian Recreation Club building near present-day Esplanade Park food court, the European Cricket Club building along present-day Jalan Padang Kota Lama, a bandstand along present-day Jalan Tun Syed Syed Barat Bar, and the Vermont Memorial Pavilion along Light Street. This building, now presently vacant, was once the Marina Center and Penang Port Office. In the early 19th century, Light Street was lined with houses belonging to Europeans. By the third quarter of the century, rich Chinese Taukas began to take over prime land along the street. One of them was the fabulously wealthy Fu Tai Sin, whose mansion is still standing today and is now occupied by Hong Leong Bank. At first glance, Fu Tai Sin's mansion looks Western, but if you inspect it closely, you will see the Chinese characters for double happiness on the circular event. It is no coincidence that the mansion looks Western with French windows on the top floor, as the Straits Chinese were Anglophiles. Fu Tai Sin himself was educated at the St. Xavier's Institution and the Penang Free School, so he possibly spoke the Queen's English too. In the old days, there was a wall around the mansion with Chinese-style gates at Light Street and at Penang Street. Today, a much lower wall demarcates the grounds of the mansion. We are now walking towards the junction of Penang Street. Across the road is the Chinese Chamber of Commerce building. The land that it stands on has changed hands many times. In the early 19th century, Captain Charles Searle of the Bengal Army had his house here. The Victoria and Albert Hotel occupied the site in 1856, and it was renamed the Central Hotel at the turn of the 20th century. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce, which was founded in 1903, occupied the upper floor of a shophouse on that site in the early 1920s. Having purchased that shophouse, they had it demolished and erected the present Penang Chinese Chamber of Commerce building in 1928. The building has a second-floor balustrade veranda that offers good views of parades on the Padang. The architect was a local, Chew Eng Yam, who also designed the Lok Tai Ki building at the junction of Penang and Burma roads. And here we take a look at Padang Kota Lama, which was once used by the military but has now become a recreational ground. There used to be a pavilion with a drinking fountain here. Called the Vermont Memorial Pavilion, it was built for James Montague Bent Vermont, a Batukawan sugar baron for whom Vermont Road was named. Across the field are the Town Hall and City Hall buildings. As with the Chinese Chamber of Commerce building, the Town Hall has a balcony to watch parades on the field. In front of us is the Great Eastern Building. It was built in 1952 and was originally called the Chung Siu Yin Building. Some 30 years after it was first erected, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce building was expanded all the way to King Street. Comparing the original building on the left and the new one on the right, you can appreciate how the architecture language has evolved from the 1920s to the 50s. With regards to the Chung Siu Ying building, New Straits Times Penang Bureau used to be there in the 1970s. But even earlier, in 1884, a young Armenian named Tigran Sarkis started a hotel on that site. He called it the Eastern Hotel. It was so successful that a year later, he got his brothers Martin, Arviat and Arshak to join him, and they opened another hotel, the Oriental at Farquhar Street. After that, they merged the two hotels to form the Eastern and Oriental Hotel, which is still operating at Farquhar Street today. In addition, the Sarkis brothers also started the Raffles Hotel in Singapore and the Strand in Yangon, Myanmar. Now we cross Jalan Padang Kota Lama, formerly known as Esplanade Road. In front of us is the Koh Sian Tat Fountain Garden. I covered it in a video on Duke Street. I will put the link to the video in the description. In front of us is Wisma Great Eastern, and to its right, the Bank Negara Malaysia building. On this interpretive board, we learned the history of the Koh Sian Tat Fountain Garden. In recent years, the state authorities have spruced up the garden, and today it is a welcome patch of greenery in the city. The Bank Negara building was built in the 1980s when the Brutalist architecture style was in fashion. The Brutalist style, as far as architecture is concerned, is an acquired taste. You either love it or hate it. Penang had its romance with the Brutalist style for a little less than a decade, but by the 1990s has permanently shaken it off. But in the 80s, it was the style of choice for a number of government buildings. On Light Street, there are two examples, the Bank Negara building on the left and the State Auditorium, Dewan Sri Penang on the right. The Dewan Sri Penang, which we see here, is the venue for concerts and live performances. In terms of size, it was later surpassed by the Geodesic Dome, which has become Tech Dome, and Pisa, which has become Spice Arena. But unlike Tech Dome, it is still in use as an auditorium today. Now we look across Light Street at the junction with Pitt Street, and the stately building across the road is the Penang High Court. As I speak, the High Court building is once again undergoing restoration. The building has been shut off to the public since 2018, and I'm not sure when it will ever reopen. We'll talk more about that afterwards. Let's cross the road now to visit the Logan Memorial. This is the memorial to James Richardson Logan, who is to 19th century Penang what Kapil Singh is to 21st century Penang. A British lawyer, Logan is best known for fighting for the rights of the non-Europeans, the Malays, the Chinese, the Indians, who often found themselves suppressed under British colonial rule. When he died at age 50 in 1869, the locals pulled a fund to create this memorial in his honor. The four-sided memorial has statues as allegories of the four cardinal virtues, namely justice, fortitude, wisdom, and temperance. And Logan's profile is also included right here. Originally, the Logan Memorial stood on the grounds of the courts, bounded by Light Street, Farquhar Street, and the now expunged Princess Street. It was moved here in the past decade when a new wing was added to the court complex. The Logan Memorial today stands in front of the Sessions and Civil Magistrate Court, a new multi-story annex to the court complex. At the podium is the original commemorative plaque recalling the contribution of James Richardson Logan. And here's another interpretive plaque added in more recent times when the memorial was relocated to this spot. For more information on the sites we cover on this walk, visit my website Penang Travel Tips. I also include links to the sites in the description of this video. To get a nice shot of the Logan Memorial with the Penang High Court building in the background, stand somewhere at this angle. Okay, now let's go back to the Penang High Court building. It was originally known as the Supreme Court. There has been a courthouse on this site as early as 1808, but the building that we are looking at right now, designed in the Palladian style, dates back to 1903. This zebra crossing is where you would often see barristers, often wearing the barrister's wig or peruke, crossing the road. Even in this tropical heat, the barristers are often seen in their full suit. The next junction on the right is to Green Hall, which I have covered on a separate video. I will put the link to that video on the top right as well as in the description. In front of us, this beautiful corner shop house dates from the late 19th century and was remodeled in the 1930s. It used to house the North Malaya Chinese Textile and General Merchants Association, but today houses Starbucks Coffee. The building retains its beautifully carved timber doors, now carefully restored and flanked by the original casement windows. On the side facade are wooden louver shutters with a balcony on the upper floor. Beyond this Starbucks outlet is Convent Light Street, the oldest girls' school in the country. It was established by nuns of the Mission of the Holy Infant Jesus in 1852. The school occupies a site that is even older, going back to the time of Captain Francis Light. Light had two wells dug here, one for town use and another for his own use. As such, he called the site Well Estate. The entrance to Convent Light Street is also the western end of Light Street. As we reach it, we have also come to the end of this walking tour. From here, we can see the collection of buildings in the school complex. The oldest of them all is Government House, which was built in 1805 and is older than the school itself. We can't see it from the roadside, so I will put a link to my website where you can see how Government House looks like. As it is part of the school, it is not open to the public. On this site, there was a very short street called Princess Street, but has since been absorbed as part of Light Street. Well everybody, we have actually come to the end of our walking tour. If you have enjoyed this walk, please take a moment to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. That would be a great help. I hope to see you again next Friday, same time, but a different place and a different walk. Until then, thanks for watching.